Alright, question of the day. What is your favorite drawing game? A game where the main mechanic involves you drawing something for other people to either guess or to vote on, in which you get to express how well or poorly you can actually draw, and if that even matters in the mechanics of the game. Because today we're taking a look at a head-to-head versus video. We're taking a look at two of my favorite drawing games and see which one comes out on top. Today we're looking at Monsdrawsity Vs Pictomania. Pictomania is a classic. Vlad, I believe, made it. Yes, Vlad, I thought so. Vlad Chvatal, probably butchered that. But anyway, great game in which you are drawing, but you're trying to be the first to draw, but you're also trying to make sure you draw well enough to other people can guess yours, so it gives you an impetus to do both. And then Monsdrawsity is a game in which you are playing all, like, what's the word for that? Sketch artist. Yeah, sketch artist, like a criminal sketch artist. So you are having someone describe a monster to you, and you have to draw it as best. And it really works because you get points for being a good describer as well as being a good artist, and you vote. So we're going to look at these two games, how they both play, pit them head to head, and then come out and see which one wins the final best of these two in my Versus series that I've done for a long time now and have loved doing. All the way back in one of my earliest Dice Star videos was like Mansions of Madness 2nd edition versus Eldritch Horror versus Arkham Horror, the card game. So let's take a look right now how these play. We'll come back, talk final thoughts. All right, so this is Pictomania and this is Monsdrawsity, as you can see from the titles at the top. Let's take a look at Pictomania first, and then we'll come back talk Monsdrawsity. First of all, you get some papers like this. Now they're labeled, that's our wonderful drawings right there. You'll get a 4-sided piece of paper, because what you're gonna do is you're gonna play 4 rounds. And you're gonna score 1, 2, 3, 4, grand total goes here. The way this game works is, boy, my copy fell over apparently. You've got these different categories of difficulty of cards, and you're going to play more and more difficult each time. The first ones start fairly easy, and then it gets to be more like concepts. So the way it works is you're going to get a certain one of these assigned to you, A, B, or C, based on the tray, A, B, or C. So let's say there's 3 cards sitting right here like this. And you will get one of these numbers assigned to you. Now, that does actually help with process of elimination when trying to guess, but you'll get, let's say you get a 1. So we have a school desk. Now, you then have to be able to delineate between drawing a school desk, a kitchen table, a nightstand, a bed, a bench, couch, but they don't know which letter you have either, necessarily. So you have a 1, that's what you have to draw, but people can look at this and go, okay, I think they're probably drawing a housefly. Now, some of them, like I said, will get more difficult, like being able to draw the difference between a lawyer and an attorney, or things like that, where it's super high concept and very difficult to do this. So, for instance, hypothesis and theory, right? Like that's pretty tricky. Runaway refugee, drifter, disinterest versus laziness and ambiguity, confusion. So they get really, really difficult. Secret agent, private eye, inspector, bodyguard. Now you can tease things out, figure out what you want to do. For how do I get them to know that I mean private eye and not spy, right? Like that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard concept. You'll draw them, and then if you're the first finished, you'll grab the token that shows that you're the first finished. Then once you're done, you'll start laying out your tokens of who you think is what everybody else is drawing. So you'll look at everybody else's and go, okay, I think this is 1, I think this is 2, I think this is 3. The good news is you don't have to lay letters. So let's just say that these 2 are out here, and you think for some reason it's a mouse, but it's actually a butterfly, and you put 2, well, you'll still get credit for that because you put 2. Then you'll score points based on how fast you guessed, how fast you drew, and then at the end of the game, the person with the most points wins the game. Now let's take a look at Monsdrawsity. Now, I will show you a quote-unquote spoiler, and by that I mean you really don't want to look at all these pictures ahead of time because you have to kind of have that little bit of surprise to it. So Monsdrawsity works like this. Everybody gets these dry erase pads, which are pretty great. And you see we've got these covered. Here's some of the ones we've done. And I'll show you this one, for instance. So this is the animal that Carla described last. So the way it works is you're going to get a pad. You as the describer are going to get 20 seconds to look at this. And then once that 20 seconds is up, you have to put it down and describe it as best you can from memory for 2 minutes. You get to describe it, and people get to draw during that time. So then you'll make your drawing, your best depiction of it, of what you think that is. Then the artist will look and we'll pick which of these is the best. And then after the artist looks, everybody will then show each other everybody will get to see the card and vote on who they think is the best simultaneously. And then you'll gain points. If you're the judge and you also guess the one that everybody else picks, you're the describer and you guess the one everybody else picks, you're going to gain additional points. So it's pretty straightforward, but I will show you just a few more of these if you want to. If you don't, skip ahead. I'll give you 10 seconds. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So you've got this one here. This is a music note snake. My daughter described that one. She did a really great job. This one was crazy. It's this turtle with a chicken, a volcano with a heart-shaped lava coming off, 2 tails. But the things to remember are like these little details here, because the people are going to be voting on, wow, yeah, you really nailed the 2 tails. This one here, this was mine. I really enjoyed this. You've got an apple coming out of it, snakes coming out, lion tail, like just really interesting, intricate stuff. Like this one's crazy looking. I don't even know how you would describe that one or that one. But the art in this game is great. It's fantastic. There are all sorts of little pictures in there. But your job is to describe to the best of your ability and then draw to the best of your ability based on that description. So that is how you play Monsdrawsity. So those 2 games play like that, obviously. But right now, we're going to take a look at which one is better. Now, first of all, we normally look at games art versus art. Now, the funny thing about this game is that only one of them really has art. Pictomania doesn't have art. It's you create the art. Whereas Monsdrawsity has those really great monsters. And I recommend not looking at them ahead of time, because you don't want to be like, oh, it's the one with the cat upside down on his fingers in the oil or whatever. You don't want to kind of know ahead of time what they are, so that you don't spoil it for yourself for when someone does describe. Now, granted, people are going to describe things in completely different ways, and plus you'd also be working from your memory as if we're all just eidetic, right? But that's not how that works. But as far as art, we have to give it to Monsdrawsity on this one, just because the great pictures are there. Now, as far as the art direction, again, these games don't come with symbols which you need to decipher. You know, this little symbol means take this resource. It's not a thing. So that's also something unique about this versus video, because drawing games are so unique. So let's take a look at gameplay. Which one of these wins in gameplay? Now, if we're talking about purely a drawing game, then Pictomania probably has more of that element in it, because you're doing like a what's the old game called? Win, lose, or draw, whatever it was called. The one that we started drawing. I don't know. Anyway, you're doing that, right? You're drawing something based on a prompt, and you're drawing that well enough to where other people can guess what you drew, but you're drawing it fast enough so that you can be the first one done, and then you're getting points for being able to guess what other people's are. So there's a lot of layers in Pictomania about what you have to do. Now, as far as Monsdrawsity, someone will read off that card, right? And you'll try to decipher exactly what they're saying. Now, you need 2 things for this to work. You need people who are good at describing. You need to be able to be good at deciphering what that person is saying, or saying, you know, I think they mean this, because they might be terrible at it, right? I actually like describing better, and I like when people are describing, I like to ask them questions that they can answer, you know, to hopefully help me get an idea of what they're doing. One thing that's funny is almost every single time the way that I faced my character was backwards of what everybody else faces it, which just boggles my mind how brains work like that. But I love that aspect of, okay, wait, there's a worm coming out of an apple. It's got rainbow zigzag music notes on it. Like, that to me is fun. You have to decipher it. And the coolest part about this game is when that card turns around and it's almost a spitting image of what you've drawn, that is a cool feeling, right? Or it's completely opposite of what you've drawn, but it's a really cool feeling when it matches perfectly. Who knows? Maybe I could be a sketch artist one day for monsters, not for real people. But at the end of the day, which of these 2, if I'm going to grab one off the shelf, which one of these 2 am I going to grab first? Here's the tricky part. They're both amazing. So I'm going to tell you that right now. You should own both of these games. They're not so similar to where you feel like, this one takes that one out. Not at all. So you should own both of these games. But which one am I going to grab first for a group? Probably going to be Pictomania. And the reason is the voting element of Monsdrawsity can turn people off, because there's a little bit of that. And yes, I know you vote hidden and then you point, right? So it's not like a a building of, well, they said this, so I'll just go with this. It's all at simultaneous times you point to a person. But what can happen is, as someone, even though the game is meant to be played to win, as people say, oh yeah, that person's art is dead on, and oh, that's dead on again, there tends to build in this repetition of, well, that's clearly going to be that person because they do it so well every time. And so that's the problem I always have with judging games and voting games, is there's a little bias starts to creep in to your actual answers, and sometimes you're like, well, I feel bad for this person, they look like they're having a miserable time, so I'll vote for them. So I do like objective scoring more than subjective scoring. However, I love the concept of Monsdrawsity. So in result, if you're going to pick one of these, you pick Pictomania, and then you immediately walk down the shelf and grab Monsdrawsity and buy both of these. But it is that order. It's 1A, 1B almost. So hope you enjoyed this versus video. It's a little lighter series today with drawing games, but we'll come back to it next month with something heavy, probably some trains or something like that. But that is Monsdrawsity versus Pictomania. I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Dice Tower Brian. Until next time, we'll see you.